In 1975, Wayne Ratliff had a problem. He couldn't figure out how to win the office football pools. Being a man of determination, however, he wasn't discouraged. Being an engineer, he had a solution. He'd use a computer. All he needed was the right software package. Since it didn't exist, he created it. And that was how dBASE began. In 1975, Wayne Ratliff was working with me on the Viking mission to Mars. I'm Gentry Lee. I work for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which builds spacecraft and flies them to the planets. I'm involved in the design and implementation of spaceborne computer systems. At home, I use my personal computer to play games with my children, do my taxes, and keep track of real estate investments. In the next hour or so, you'll see how you can use your computer and the dBASE program to solve a wide range of problems. dBASE is a powerful and flexible tool that allows you to manage information in an efficient and accurate manner. With dBASE, tasks that have been repetitive, time-consuming, and sometimes frustrating can be reduced to simple keyboard manipulation. Our tape is designed to give you a working knowledge of the dBASE program. It's essentially divided into 3 parts. We begin with a set of characters that encounter a problem in everyday life that can be solved using the dBASE program. In the second part, we transform that problem into the language of dBASE. The third part is a step-by-step recapitulation using instructional graphics of the lessons learned in that particular application. One more comment. The specific implementation in this tape is based on dBASE 3, the powerful big brother of dBASE 2. All the functions that are shown can also be done using dBASE 2, but some of the individual commands may be different. All right, let's meet Michael Fisher at Babbage Publishing. He's about to discover he has a problem that dBASE can help him solve.
Just the PC.
Fisher is director of sales. His mandate is to improve his department's paper processing procedures while also cutting his budget. He has a week to figure out how. George Davis is Fisher's assistant, and in truth, the one who holds the department together. As usual, George will roll up his sleeves and take care of this latest management crisis. Art Wilson heads up one of the company's busiest divisions, the data processing department. Fisher first turned to him for help, but as you'll see, this was not to be. And these are some of Fisher's salespeople. Hard-working when on the road, they tend to relax when at home base. If the department is to become more efficient, these people will have to change their ways. But for now, Fisher has to deal with the more immediate problems.
No, Art, it's just a little too rich for our blood. No, thanks. Seriously, thanks. For nothing.
Let me guess. They can't do it.
Oh, no, they can do it. If we give them 6 weeks and $50,000.
Maybe you should just authorize some OT. I'll get Mary and Len and a few of the others started on the forecast right away.
George, I don't think that's going to work. No, not in the long run. We need another system. And I think I've got the solution. It involves you.
Want to let me in on it?
Remember that computer program that I've been using, dBASE, for my personal accounts and inventories? Well, it can do a lot more, and I think it can help us here. But I want you to make sure.
Michael, my knowledge about computers is, limited.
Well, that's going to change, in fact, this weekend. Sorry, pal. I want you to take this home and go through this. Trust me, George, it's not that complicated.
With the 30 or so commands that George will study this weekend, he'll be able to set up a database so that he can produce all the data that Fisher needs for his reports. And though Fisher isn't yet aware of it, these same commands will help him solve a completely different problem at home.
Hello, ladies. What's this? I mean, this is where I left you this morning. The same pile, the same papers, same bride-to-be.
Same hysteria.
Yeah?
We're not making much progress, Dad. And this is why.
Judy Fisher's wedding plans have reached a paper impasse. On 14 separate lists are the names of hundreds of proposed guests for the different functions. Judy and her mother, Gail, have been diligently working at it, but they have been unable to sort and organize the lists. Now they are enlisting Michael's help.
No, you were going to stay. You were a willing party when all this started. Let's get this woman married.
Okay. So, what do we have to do?
The wedding list serves as a simple introduction to dBASE and its basic commands. We'll see how to develop a standard mailing list and how to apply simple arithmetic and yes-no responses to these lists.
Well, first, we have to figure out who wants to invite whom to what.
Mm-hmm.
And then We have to do some cutting. Do you realize that we have over 500 names suggested on these pieces of paper? Oh, some for the wedding, some for the rehearsal, some for both, some for the rehearsal dinner, some for...
Hey, whoa, wait a minute. I understand. It's basically a question of organization, right?
Oh, you management types. It's always a question of organization. This is not that simple.
No, but it's not that difficult either. In fact, it sounds like a problem we're having at the office. And you know, we might get the same kind of help here. We'll use the computer and the dBASE program to do the wedding list.
Yeah, any excuse to play with the computer, right?
Oh, ye women of little faith. I bet the dBASE will make sense out of these lists, and we'll do it quickly and accurately, and we'll have a permanent record to boot. We can't lose. I mean, it's data management, right?
Have disk will travel.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, guys, it's time out for me. Tell you what, Dad, pinch it here for me, and I'll make a terrific dinner.
Hey, you've got a deal.
Defining the problem is the first step in any data management task, big or small. Next, you must understand the existing data, and, in this case, learn the language of dBASE.
All right. Okay. Judy, would you turn on the computer? That way it'll be ready for us when we are.
So, Michael, what you're saying now is that all this is data?
Right. All these lists are databases. I mean, so is this catalog, so is this phone book and your address book. Look at this list. See, it's carefully arranged in rows and columns. It's called a relational database.
Those are Jim's relations, not ours.
Listen, it's all relative now. Hey, seriously. A relational database is information stored in rows and columns, like this. See, except a row is called a record, and a column becomes a field. And each column has a title. That's called the field name. Now, in this case, each person's name becomes a record. Come on, let's go over the computer. That way you'll see what I'm talking about. Here you go.
One request, Michael.
Yeah?
Let me use the computer. I want a hands-on experience so that I can make dBASE work for me even if you're not here. You just lead me through it, okay?
That's fine with me. Okay, now I think the best place to start is right at the beginning.
Okay.
In this section, you'll see the exact steps it takes to get dBASE started, how to create the structure of your database, and the simple but essential rules of the dBASE program.
The dBASE disk is in the A drive. Now, type the word dBASE and press the return key. That gets the program started.
I got a dot on the bottom of the screen.
Right. That's what's called the dot prompt. dBASE is signaling you. I'm at your command. Tell me what to do.
I like that. Just like a genie in a magic lamp. So, what do I do?
Well, you always follow a dot prompt with a command. So type set default to B. Now that tells the computer that all of the data is going to go on the disk in the B drive unless you specify otherwise, okay? Now, to actually create the database, type create and press the return key. Okay, now so instead of having all those files all over the place, they're going to be on that disk.
Oh, and that file has to have a name. How about our daughter's wedding?
No, it's not going to work. You see, computers have rules too, and one of them is that a file name can't have more than 8 letters or numbers, and it has to begin with a letter and contain no embedded blank spaces, okay?
Okay, that's simple. We'll call the file wedding. Next step?
Okay, we'll press return. Okay, and then just fill in the blanks. See, we have a file name, right? Okay, but now we need field names. Remember, those are the headings for the columns. So let's see. Let's call the first field name, names, okay? Because that represents the guest that we're going to have.
Well, now I've typed in name, char text. What does that mean?
Well, it tells you on the bottom. It's kind of a shorthand. It stands for character or text information. Now, that's the kind of data that we'll put in the field. Now, here, just a second. See, there are different categories of data. There's also numeric and date and logical and memo. We'll get to those later.
I see. Now we're using a character field.
That's right. You use the space bar to get the field type you want, and then you press return to select it.
Well, now, but what about this width?
Well, that's just the maximum number of spaces you're going to need in the field. Now, what's the longest name we have in the list?
I think it's Richard Fitzpatrick. Let's see, that would take about 30 spaces. And let me guess. Then I press return?
That's right. All right, now we're ready to work on the next field, okay? But before we go any further, I think we should decide, what kind of fields we need.
Well, aside from names, let's see, we need address, phone numbers, who submitted the name, the events they'll be attending. What else?
What about the number of people represented by a given name? Like Richard Fitzpatrick might include his wife and those two awful kids.
That's right. Well, let me try and enter all this.
Gail is now applying the basic lessons she has learned. First, she selects field names and field types and establishes the maximum number of spaces the data in that field will require. She enters that number in the field width column. When necessary, she uses the space bar to select a different field type. Logical fields clearly require a width of only one character. The field width of attending, a numeric field, can be 2. And since wedding guests come only in whole units, 0 can be the decimal place designation.
Looks like you got a convert. I just want to let you know that dinner's almost ready, if you're still interested in simple things like food.
I heard that, and I'm famished. Just give me a minute.
Nobody's perfect. So first we'll see how to correct errors. Then, how to save the structure of the database, as well as the steps to start and stop the data entry process.
Oh, darn. I spelled address, A-D-R-E-S-S.
That's no problem. It's easy to fix. Use the arrow keys to move the cursor. So move it to address and retype it.
There, I'm finished. How do I stop?
Well, just press Control-N.
Gail has completed the first step, the creation of the database structure. Now she can take the second step and begin entering her data.
Yes, I want to enter data. Michael, this isn't set up in rows and columns.
Well, it's in that format because we enter the information a record at a time, but inside the computer, it's in rows and columns.
I see. Well, don't we need to sort these lists before I start typing them?
No, dBASE will sort for you. You'll see what I mean. Just enter the data.
That's easy enough.
Gail's right. If you have planned well and your database structure is complete, then the process of data entry is really just a matter of filling in the blanks.
Dinner's ready.
Oh, so am I. This was not the easy part, Michael. Oh, my back is killing me, and I'm not even half done.
Hey, come on, relax now, Gail. We've got all weekend to do those lists, so let's just have dinner and forget it for now.
That's fine with me.
No. You want to lose everything you've done? There's a proper way to quit. First, you need to get out of the data entry mode, okay? Press Control-N to stop data entry. Now that you have a dot prompt, type the command quit. See, quit ensures that everything you've just done is properly saved on the disk. So now you can turn the computer off. Good. Let's do it.
The Fishers get to eat, and we get a chance to review what we have learned. In fact, we'll be doing this throughout the tape. We'll interrupt the action at various times so that we can recap the major points for you. We want you to understand not only how dBASE can be used to solve real-world problems, but also the step-by-step process for operating the dBASE program.
This review will introduce the language and rules of dBASE. First, you have to have dBASE up on your machine. Type dBASE after the operating system prompt. When dBASE has loaded, you'll see a dot prompt. This is the signal that dBASE is ready. Now comes the organization of the data itself. A dBASE database consists of rows and columns. Each row is a record. Each column is a field. Each column heading is a field name, and the number of characters in the field is the field width. The field types are character or char text, numeric, date, logical, and memo. Character fields may contain anything that can be entered from an ordinary typewriter keyboard. Numeric fields store numbers that are to be used in calculations. Date fields are meant specifically to handle dates. Logical fields are for those things that can be answered with yes or no, or true or false. Memo fields are designed to handle memoranda and other large documents. To create a database, type the command create after the dot prompt. Then enter the file name. Next, define the structure of the database, enter the field names, and select the field types. For character or numeric fields, you must enter a field width. A numeric field width includes the number of decimal places and the decimal point. To change an entry, move the cursor to the item and retype it. Use the arrow keys to move the cursor. To end the process of creating the database structure, press Ctrl End. Now you may choose to enter data. To stop the data entry process itself, also press Ctrl End. To exit from dBASE, use the command quit. Quit closes your database file and saves all of the data you've entered.
Let's see. I need to pick up where I left off Friday night. If I remember correctly, I should use the command append.
In this section, we'll see how to resume data entry, how to view the contents of your database, how to display specific sections of it, how to rearrange it alphabetically, and how to obtain a printed list.
Oh, darn, I forgot to use wedding. Oh, no big deal. Record number 216. There you are. Okay. Only 4 more names to go. Martin Walker, 549 Magnolia Street, Oakland.
Hello? Anybody home?
In here.
I'm making a pit stop in the kitchen. Any orders?
No thanks. Have a good time at the game?
Terrific. You missed a good one. Hey, why are you working on Sunday, the day of rest?
I'm not. I'm finished. I, sir, have just completed the creation of a database. And I have but one question for you.
Oh, yes.
Well, an address on a previous entry isn't right. Turns out Aunt Madge has moved. I put in her old address. Now, how do I fix something I can't see?
Well, how about by going back to it?
Okay.
Now, hit the page up key. That moves you backwards. In the database, a record at a time.
Ah, there it is. And then I use the arrow key to move the cursor to the mistake.
Now use the page down key to get back to your last entry. Then you can continue on adding your records, right?
No, I'm done. So I use Control End to stop.
You realize, Gail, that you've only completed the first step.
What do you mean?
Well, you've created your database. The next step is to put it to work. Tell it what to do.
Oh, dBASE, take me away from all this. Didn't work. All right, I'll settle for an alphabetical list. One for me, one for Judy, for Jim's mother. Oh, and one for the printer so he can do the calligraphy on the envelopes.
Well, fine. That's all doable. But let's take it a step at a time. First, wouldn't you like to see what you've done?
Of course.
Then type in the command, display, and hit return.
Oh, look, the record's on 2 lines.
Yeah.
Is that how it's supposed to appear?
Yeah. It just means it's too long to display on a single line, so it wraps around. Now, a single record can have up to 4,000 characters, right? Of course, if you want to make it just one line on the screen, you'd limit your display by asking for a specific row and column.
Let's try it.
Okay?
How about the names and addresses of those people whose surname begins with B?
Well, you do that by adding some specific conditions to your display command.
Okay.
Now type display name, comma, address for name equals, open quote, B, unquote.
I see. But why is the B in quotes?
That's called delimiting. You see, you're asking dBASE to compare what's called a character string, the names beginning with B in this case, with the entire content of the field called name.
Right.
Now, you have to tell dBASE that B is a character string, and you do this by delimiting, setting it off with quotes, right? Now, they can be single or double as long as they're the same on both ends.
Well, the B's are certainly there, but they're not in alphabetical order. I mean, that way I'd know, if we had duplicates or if I'd missed any names.
Well, there are two ways to get an alphabetical listing, sort or index.
So, to enter the command sort, I would...
Well, again, there's a specific formula for the command, okay? Type in sort on name to new list.
What is this new list stuff?
Well, when dBASE sorts, it makes a new copy of the database. We have to give the copy a file name. I just use new list.
Well, then how do we get to see the alphabetical list?
To display the file we've just made, we need to use it. Enter the command use new list. To see the first 20 names and addresses, type display next 20 name, comma, address.
Oh, and there it is. Terrific.
All right.
I'd like to get a copy of my handiwork.
Okay. Then we'll get a printout by entering list name, comma, address to print. Now, let me switch the printer on. And we're set.
In this recap, we will cover display, list, sort, and use. To see all or part of a database, use the display or list commands. The difference between the two is slight. Display, used alone, displays all of a single record. List, used alone, displays all records in their entirety. Display all is similar to list, except that it pauses every 20 lines. To continue the output, strike any key. List is normally used for printed output. Display is normally used for video output. First, let's use display to explain the structure or syntax of a dBASE command. A command like display is made up of several parts. The first is a verb. This is followed by other optional elements that can be used to specify more exactly what the command is to do. These optional elements are shown in square brackets in the dBASE manual and here on the screen. The items in angle brackets are supplied by you, the user. In this example, the verb display is followed by the scope. This defines the applicable part of the database. Here, the scope limits the command to the next 20 records. The expression list defines the specific items to be displayed. In this case, it is name, address, city, state, each of which is delimited or separated by a comma. Condition further limits the command. In this case, name equals B sets the condition by limiting the display to those records where the information in the field name begins with a capital B. The command sort makes a copy of all or part of the database. The records in the copy are arranged alphabetically by the contents of the field that was sorted on. The command would read sort on field name to file name. In the case of Mrs. Fisher, the field name is name and the file name is new list. Sort, as we said earlier, is just one way to reorganize data. Another way is to index. We'll see that command a little later in the tape. The use command opens a database file. You can only work with an open file. When you use one file, any other database that was already open is closed or put away safely. In our example, use new list opened the file new list and closed the file wedding.
Well, I'm glad we did this printout. I see several duplicate entries. How do I get rid of them?
Next, we'll see how records are removed from your database using delete, recall, and pack.
Well, you see this number on the left-hand column? That's the record number. Now, one way to get rid of something is to enter delete record followed by the record number. Okay, let's give it a shot.
Okay, back to the computer. Okay, I've deleted all the duplicate records. Now I want to print out.
Well, wait a minute. You're not quite ready for that. At the moment, you've only marked the records for deletion. You can see these records by typing display name for deleted. The word deleted has to be followed by opened and closed parentheses. Now, the asterisk indicates that the record has been marked for deletion.
Oh, I see I've made a mistake. I've marked record 15, and it should have been 16.
Well, then you need to remove the deletion mark. To do that, enter recall record and the record number.
Oh, okay. That's taken care of. Now, how do I finally get rid of the duplicate records?
Well, the command for that is pack.
Okay. Done. Packed. Now, I want a copy of the corrected list.
Hello, folks. Still at it?
Oh, you just wait a few minutes, Judy, and we'll show you something that you will just love.
Records are removed from a database in a two-step process. The delete command marks a record for removal, but it does not actually remove or delete any data. When deleted records are displayed, an asterisk appears beside the record number. The recall command allows you to change your mind. By using recall, you erase the deletion mark. When you have finally decided which commands to remove, use the pack command. Pack destroys these records by permanently removing the marked records from your database.
Well, folks, this is really useful. What can I say? You were right, Dad. You're a whiz, Mom. Thank you both.
It was our pleasure. All we have to do now is decide who not to invite.
You think we're much over in our head count?
You know, I really don't know. I haven't added up the names on the printout yet.
Oh, I'll do that, Mom. Let's see, we've got 3, 4, 5.
Why don't you let dBASE do the counting?
The sum command provides an example of how dBASE solves mathematical problems.
Each of the events, like wedding, has its own field that identifies the suggested guest to attend that event, right? The number of people in each party, we call that attending. So to get the totals for that event, type sum. That's SUM, attending for wedding. You do exactly the same for the reception, except that
You type sum, SUM, attending, for reception.
right. And you do the same for all the other events.
290 people for the reception. Mother, we're in trouble.
You're in trouble? You're in trouble? What about me? Do you know how much that is per head?
Listen, guys, we're ahead of the game. At least now we know what the problem is. Let's decide whose heart's to break tomorrow. Oh, I am going to bed.
Good idea, huh? Hi, Judy.
So, by using dBASE, the Fishers were able to sort out the wedding list, eliminate the duplicate names, and quickly determine how many guests were being suggested for each event. To do this, they first created the database structure. Next, the Fishers transferred the information from their paper lists into the computer. Then, using 11 different dBASE commands, They sorted, deleted, queried, and finally quit using their database, having solved their data management problem.
Sum adds the contents of database fields that meet the condition that's given in the command. If no fields are identified, Sum will add and display all numeric fields.
This has been an obviously simple example to introduce you to dBASE. And we've begun with the most basic commands. But don't let the simplicity fool you. Each of these commands provides the foundation for data management. Everything else that comes up will stem from these commands.
Oh, I'm tired, but I feel great. You don't know what a load it is off my mind to have that wedding list done.
Well, I'm glad you're glad, sweetheart. We aims to please.
Oh, you are a wonderful teacher, Michael. Nothing like that man that taught me to drive 20 years ago.
I say we both improved in a lot of areas since then.
Older, but wiser, right?
Right. This old man has got to get some sleep because I've got a very rough day coming up tomorrow.
You've got a rough day. Oh, I've got Amanda Covington to look forward to. Ah, you wouldn't believe this woman. She is truly amazing. She called me last Monday and asked me to stop by.
Gail, like Michael, is also in business. She runs a small but profitable catering company out of her home. Creativity, organization, and flexibility are requirements as she deals with the changing whims of clients like Amanda Covington. Mrs. Fisher to see you, ma'am.
Oh, Gail, come sit down.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you could fit me in. Some iced tea, dear?
Oh, no thanks. Why don't we get right?
I do apologize for the short notice, but it came up quickly. It's a surprise party for my granddaughter, Monica. A week from Friday. 150 guests. Cocktails, dinner, entertainment, a Mexican theme, here in the gardens. What do you think?
Why don't
You tell me what I'd like. I'm leaving it all in your capable hands.
And 10 large piñatas. Now, I'll want flowers in those big earthenware pots. Yeah, you better give me about 30 of those. And 150 of those miniature mariachis for party favors.
So everything was going
No,
along
you gotta make that
smoothly until the next morning
Right.
when she dropped into the office.
Gail, darling. Oh, there you are.
I was just picking up some papers I dropped.
Of course you were. Anyway, dear, small problem. The party cannot be Mexican. The Fillmores are doing a fiesta theme later this month, and we wouldn't want to embarrass them by doing it better, would we? She's so dear.
Cancel the piñatas, Harry, and give me 20 Japanese lanterns. Oh, and 200 of those black enamel chopsticks. No, I do not need the earthenware pots anymore. And then she called me yesterday with another change. Hello, Gail Fisher.
Gail, darling, a little change in plans. I just found out we're going to have a very special guest from India. I'd like to do something in his honor. So, could we have curry instead of teriyaki?
No lanterns, no chopsticks. No, I do not want a sacred cow grazing through the gardens. That's not funny, Harry. Hold on. Michael, why didn't I think of this before? I could use dBASE. I could put all my files into the computer. Oh, Amanda, you may have just done me a favor.
Good for you, Gail. And I'm really glad you're glad. Will you please go to sleep? I've got a tough meeting tomorrow. Oh.
Look, people, I know they may have overlooked it in the past, but, well, there's a new rule, and that is no expense reports, no advances. No exceptions.
Well, then you can tell them to forget about the Atlanta convention, if they can afford to pass up a few $100,000.
Look,
Monday morning at Babbage
nobody's
Publishing.
happy with the situation.
While Michael Fisher meets with his bosses, George Davies tries to explain the new company policies regarding travel reports to these less than impressed salespeople.
This is a corporation, and rules are rules, and
But these people and their bad habits are not the whole problem.
you're to blame.
Fisher and Davies must figure out how to handle more efficiently all the data that flows through their department.
Some of us sell books. We don't just push paper.
Oh, Sanford, look, you're making this more difficult than it needs to be.
As you might expect, George decides to put his new understanding of dBASE immediately to work. Together with Michael, he takes the essential first step of determining exactly what their database must do and then analyzing what to put in it. Next, Michael and George translate that information into dBASE field names and field types to make certain they have the proper tools to solve their data management problems. Once it has been properly planned, their database will provide quick, simple, and economical tracking of the department's travel records.
Well, if you think we're covered, I'll start creating a database, and then this afternoon I'll start entering the records.
All right?
In this section, we will see how to reorganize the database by sorting or indexing its contents, how to add or subtract whole fields using modify structure, and how to use the browse command.
Excuse me, I have the computer.
Oh, Lynn, would you put it all down here? Thanks.
Come on, Bert, put it right here.
George creates the database structure using exactly the same commands as Gail with the wedding list. But Michael decides they can also use some slightly more advanced techniques.
There. Now we've created a structure. What next, CB?
Well, now you enter the records. Wait a minute. On second thought, I think we should pre-sort the database by travel advance number and travel report number.
Now, I don't follow. How can you sort something before you enter it? And secondly, how can you sort something two different ways at the same time?
By using index.
Fisher's right. You can use the index command. Records are stored in a database file in the order they are added. But at times, we need the data in some other, more convenient order. One way to get this is to sort. Remember, the wedding list was sorted alphabetically. The records in that case were actually rearranged permanently into a new file. Indexing allows us to sort a database without rearranging the records. This is done by means of an index file, a special file that controls the order in which database records appear. When you use an index file with a database, any change that affects the indexing order of the database is automatically incorporated into the index file. You can have up to 7 index files for each database file. To do what Fisher suggests, they would index on a field name to an index file name by typing index on tadvance to tadvance. Then they would enter index on treport to treport.
So, by setting up the index before I put in my data, I have a working index at all time?
That's right. That's the most efficient way to do it. Although you can set up an index at any time.
So, now I'm ready to enter the data.
No, not yet. First, we have to turn on both indexes. So type set index to tadvance, comma, treport.
Fisher, thought you'd left town. I've been trying to track you down all morning.
Well, just been working here, Art.
What are you guys doing? Setting up your own data processing department? Should I worry about competition?
Tell you what, Art, why don't we go back to my office? I'll buy you a cup of coffee and we'll have a little talk.
Good idea. So, now to put in the data, I use the append command.
George has not quit since creating the structure, so he can simply begin entering data using append without using a file name.
Nimble one. Your fingers preceded your brain. I think you put the wrong figures in for Martin. Better check. To back up the records, press the page up key. Cox, Martin, there it is. Okay, the arrow key moves the cursor. Now make the change. To get back to append, press the page down key. Left out his meal costs. How did I do that?
Must have been wishful thinking. We would have come in on budget if it hadn't been for his figures.
Why don't we just forget him? Better yet, why don't we just erase him altogether? Maybe then he'll go away.
Right. Wait a minute. I think we've left out something we need. An accounts code.
I don't like the sound of that.
No big deal. We just add a field to the database.
Just enter a new field. I got 100 records in a wrong database.
Trust me, you're not going to lose any of the data you put in there. All we have to do is change the structure by using modify structure.
It looks like create.
That's right. Now use the down arrow key. Move the cursor just below the field for purpose. Press Control N, that's not end, Control N, to insert a blank field. Now you define the new field. Then press Control N to save it.
Great. Now I got 103 records with a blank account code. How do I fill them in?
That's what browse is for. We're at the last record in the database. We want to get back to the beginning. See Set Options in the Help menu? Now press Control Home. Look at the line above the Help menu. These are the options that we can choose from. To pick an option, use the left and right arrow keys. Each time you press a key, the next item is highlighted. That's step one. When the selection you want is highlighted, press the return key.
That's very impressive.
Well,
and
now-
mighty efficient.
Well, now we can enter the contents of the account field. But you're going to have to do that, my friend, because I've got a lot of appointments.
In this recap, we will review the append and browse commands. Use the append command to add records to the database. If index files are being used with the database, they will be updated each time a record is added. Use the arrow keys to move the cursor around the screen. To move back to a previous record, press the page up key. To return to the record being appended, press the page down key. Browse displays several records at a time. Press the page down key to browse towards the end of the database. Press the page up key to browse towards the beginning. Use the left and right arrows with the control key to pan the display. Use the arrow keys to move about on screen. Press the F1 key to toggle the help menu on and off. Here is an example of Browse's ability to format screen displays to suit a particular need. George needs to see fields that are now off-screen, side by side with the name field, in order to add the account number. Press Control Home to get the options menu. Use the right arrow key to highlight the word lock. Press the return key. Enter 1 and press return to lock column 1. Press Control right arrow. The name column remains on screen, while the purpose column appears to slide off screen under it. To limit editing, for example, to the account field, press Control Home. Move the cursor to freeze. Press return. Enter the field name, account. When finished browsing, press Control and End.
George, I need everything you've got so far.
I'm still entering records. What's the rush?
Gray wants a preliminary budget analysis by 10 a.m., and I need justification for the figures.
In this section, we'll see how dBASE handles dates. We'll also learn about the various arithmetical and general queries that enable many routine business needs to be satisfied quickly with straightforward keyboard commands.
How many records do we have so far?
I just entered record 211. I'm only halfway through the stack.
Well, what time period does that cover?
A little over 6 months. Do you need an exact date?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll need to index the database by the starting date of the trips. That'll put the records in chronological order. The first record will be the earliest travel date. I think we can get most of the other information you want with the ad hoc query commands: sum, average, count.
That's right. And if we turn on the printer, that'll save us a step, because then you won't have to write down all the output information from the screen. Let's do that.
Getting back to your question, we can get the exact time period by subtracting the earliest starting date from the most recent. Go top takes us to the earliest database record. We can see it with question mark, depart. We save this date in the computer's memory by store, depart to date 1.
And go bottom takes us to the end of the database where we have the most recent travel entries.
That's correct. To get the number of days covered by the records, we subtract date 1, that's the date we stored, from the most recent date, that's the one in this record.
Yep. Let's see, that's 192 days. We need a 6-month period, that's 182 days. So when was that?
December 4.
All right, that'll do fine. Now, can you give me the amounts spent by category and their totals for that period?
Yep. The command is sum for depart greater or equal to December 4.
Start is an example of a memory variable. George calculated and then stored the date December the 4th, giving it the name start. Whenever he needs to refer to December the 4th in a calculation, he can simply use start in his command.
There it is. Take a deep breath before you look at it.
Well, we did spend a lot of money. Now, let me see the number of trips for the period.
Well, we want to count the number of records, so we would enter count for depart greater than or equal to December 4.
Now let me see the figures for the average cost for trip by category.
That's almost like getting the total cost. The command is average for depart greater than or equal to December 4.
Okay, now, give me the number of days that we spent traveling.
Oh, well, you get the number of days for one trip by subtracting the start date from the return date and then adding a 1. That's where the date of departure is included.
Oh, come on, surely you don't have to do that for every record.
Well, surely you do, but I think dBASE would do it for you.
All right.
That would be an expression. You can sum expressions. Let's try sum return minus start date plus 1. Success.
Sure spent a lot of time on the road.
And a lot of money, too. John's meal costs alone are about equal to the government farm subsidies.
We'll worry about that with Gray tomorrow. George, you did pretty good. Come on, let's have a drink.
A drink? Hey, how about a raise?
George, come on.
I think we've got 2 satisfied customers. George has developed some new computer skills, and Michael has the data he needs so he can provide that tighter, more credible budget for his boss. For them, dBASE provided an economic, efficient, and relatively uncomplicated way to solve some traditionally time-consuming and difficult problems. Now let's review the commands they use to query the database.
In this review, we will cover printer instructions and the ad hoc query commands. To print, use the command setPrintOn. This routes everything that appears on screen to the printer. To turn the printer off, the counterpart command is setPrintOff. The next command is go. Go top, in this case, means the beginning of the database. If the database is not indexed, that means record 1. If it is indexed, it means the first record in the indexed order. Go bottom means to the end of the database. Record number allows you to go directly to any record. The command store temporarily saves a data item in the computer's memory. It functions as an electronic scratch pad. You can store up to 256 items at a time. These items can be dates, numbers, or character strings of various kinds. Dates in dBASE are a special data type with a number of useful characteristics. You can subtract one date from another and get the number of days between them. Or you can add or subtract a number of days to or from a date and obtain a new date. So when George subtracted the number of days in 6 months from the last starting date, this characteristic allowed him to store the result in a new memory variable called start. From then on, all of the commands used the memory variable start as the date. The sum command allows you to add the contents of the specified fields. If no optional fields are named, all the fields in the database are added. The count command allows you to count the records which meet a specified condition. The average command calculates the average value of the contents of the named fields. If no fields are specified, all database fields are averaged.
Dinner. Must be curry tonight. Gail doesn't know that Michael's running a little late, but that won't bother her. She's in too good a mood today. Remember her dilemma with Mrs. Covington, Our Lady of Changes? Well, things are under control on that front now. Gail organized all her files using dBASE today, and she's now confident she could handle a dozen Mrs. Covingtons. Gail, as you'll see, had a very productive day.
Okay, Mother, I'm all yours for the rest of the day. Where shall I begin?
Oh, Judy, I'm sorry. I have been so wrapped up in my work, I forgot to let you know. I don't need any typing today.
Mother, you complained all weekend about how much work you had to do on the Covington order.
I still do, but you don't. The computer will do the typing. You can just go shopping.
Yeah, and let my competitor take over without a fight? No, thanks. Want to let me in on your little scheme?
No scheme, darling. It's just my new business strategy.
Next, we will introduce the use of multiple files and the very useful report command.
You know that 99% of running this business is juggling information. When I cater a party, I pick waiters from a list of waiters, food from a list of menus, supplies from a list of suppliers, and so on. And then I send copies of my orders to the suppliers, copies to the client.
Yes, I know that. But how's the computer going to make it any easier?
Well, it's much faster than me with my pencil or you with your typewriter.
Yeah, like with my wedding list.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. I don't want to be the only Fisher who can't use a computer. Besides, you've got me curious. Mind if I hang around?
Oh, of course not. Let me show you what I've done. I have taken the information from these lists and entered it into 3 databases. One for menus, one for suppliers, and one for personnel.
You type DIR. What's it mean?
It stands for directory. That shows us the names of all the database files that I've stored on the disk.
But you said all the files.
Mm-hmm.
Can you use more than one at the same time?
Oh, sure. Oh, but first let me show you what I've put in the menu database. I'll enter use menus. See, that tells dBASE to open up the file. And we can see what's stored here by displaying a single record. Each of the records is for one menu item. The fields, now that's the columns, they show the item, my cost, price to the client, servings, supplier code, and a party motif. Hawaiian, Mexican, Japanese.
I understand everything there, but the supplier code.
Well, you know that I use a particular suppliers for particular menu items. I also use a single letter code that lets me cross-reference supplier to menu. Well, I found out that I could do the same with dBASE. What I haven't figured out is how to get dBASE to display the supplier name instead of the code when I want to use it that way.
Ask Dad. He'll probably know. You go call him and I'll take your place.
Be my guest.
Okay, what's next?
Well, next we need to prepare printed reports from the database. I can use those as part of the customer's bill.
Aha, that's what I used to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see how dBASE does it.
You'll have to bear with me on this. We'll work it out as we go. Hi, Michael, it's Gail. Do you have a minute? I have a question about dBASE.
Gail, as a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of something. Let me get back to you later, please.
Yes. Goodbye. Well, there's no reason why we can't work this problem out ourselves. You ready to start? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, we'll begin with the command create report. Actually, what I'll need are several reports. One should be menus.
But you already have a file called menus.
Oh, that's okay. You can have one report with the same name as your database.
There it is. All the fields in the menu file. What do you want to use for a page heading?
Menu selections for Mrs. Covington.
Shall I date it?
Oh, no need. dBASE will print that on the report. But try and center the title a bit. Go back to the beginning of the line and then press insert.
It says insert.
Right. Now hit the space bar to move the title to where you want it. And now you've got to hit insert again to switch the insert mode off. That's a toggle key switching insert on and off. Now, use either the arrow key or page down to get to the next screen.
What's all this?
It's for subtotaling. Press page down.
I guess the name of a field goes in the first big block.
The next block must be for the column title. Okay, now go ahead and enter servings.
Do you want the totals on this column?
No, better make that heading number of servings.
Doesn't look so good. How about putting it on 2 lines?
Okay, back it up to the last column by pressing the page up key. Now you can change it. Use the arrow key. Okay, price comes next.
Totals on this one?
Don't think so. Next you'll enter cost per serving. And the last field is price times serving.
Now you want totals.
Let's call it your cost.
So we're done with this part?
Right. Now press Control in and we'll see if it works.
Hello? Gail, darling.
Expecting someone?
No. Could you see who it is while I try and figure this out?
In this review, we will cover directory and report. The dir command is used to display the names of the database files on the disk. By adding what is called a skeleton, you can display any or all of the disk files. dir displays names of database files on the disk. dir*.ndx displays names of index files on the disk. dir*** displays names of all files on the disk. Report is one of dBASE's most powerful and useful commands. You can use it to prepare intricately laid out printed reports. Report uses the results of the command create report. This command, in essence, allows for a dialogue with the user. The question and answer process collects all of the information that dBASE will need to prepare the printed, customized report.
So as long as I was in the neighborhood, I just thought I'd stop by and say hello.
And talk to you about an idea I had.
Likely story. I'm so glad you did. As a matter of fact, I was going to call you later anyway.
Oh, no problems, I hope.
If I had a dime for every problem... No problem. Just a progress report. Now, what is this idea?
Well, dear, I've been thinking. Indian cuisine is so wonderfully different, but some people seem to prefer the more familiar. Perhaps we'd do better with a more international flavor. What do you think?
Cosmetics, plastics. Chinese would make a nice compliment.
Splendid.
Next, we'll see two commands that can save considerable time. Copy and browse, which allows for alterations in the database content.
Oh, I hope it's not too much trouble.
Nope, no trouble at all. Trouble, Amanda, makes the stout heart stouter. I'll take care of it for you right now.
I didn't know you were a computer programmer.
I'm not. I just know the basics, and I'd love to show you. Now, we'll just move all the Chinese items into a party file, just for you. You see, I'm creating a new file for you by copying part of a master file that has all of my menu items. Then I'll put a form on the screen so we can choose from these items.
How in the world did you do that?
Well, first I tell the computer that I want to work with your party file. I do that by entering use cove 15. That means change number 15. Then, by entering browse fields, menu item, price, servings, we call up the form on the screen.
I see, yes.
I'll need your help to fill in the blanks. Just tell me how many servings you'll want for each of these items.
Well, I think we'll pass on the first two. Of those I like, 150 each of the next three.
Gail's clever use of browse allows her to enter or change data in a real-time interaction. By using that data as a part of a condition to be attached to a query or other type of command, she will be able to list, print, count, or average those items which she and her client have agreed upon.
Well, I believe we're through.
Almost. You should have a copy of the menu. I'll have it ready in just a moment. If you have a little more time, we can go over some of the other details.
Oh, no. I know it's in capable hands.
Aha. Your printout is ready.
We will now review the command copy. Copy is a very versatile, but basically simple command. In its basic form, copy will only work with a database file that is already in use. Its basic structure is copy to file name. The command, however, has a number of optional parts, as you can see from its syntax. When the command is used in its basic form, it creates a duplicate of the database in use. The options allow you to copy selected parts of the database, as Gail has just done by specifying only those records that deal with Chinese food items. If it had been necessary, Gail could also have specified which fields were to be copied. When no field list is given, all fields in the record are copied.
So anyway, I don't think I'll see her again until the party. You know, I almost feel ashamed of myself.
Well, now what have you done?
Michael, I haven't done anything. And what are you doing here?
Yeah, I heard you were buried under a pile of work.
Well, I was, but I had to crawl my way out just to get home to you. Well, okay. I have a meeting about 5 minutes away. Sorry I was brusque on the phone. But I have 10 minutes now, so what's the problem?
No problem. At least none we couldn't figure out for ourselves.
Oh, well, I stand corrected.
Okay, sit down.
The most powerful commands we will cover deal with multiple files and work areas. Select, display status, and set relation. These commands connect information stored in otherwise separate files.
You got it.
I was having trouble getting two database files to work together. Every time that I would call up the second file, dBASE would put the first file away.
Well, maybe you missed a step in the process.
Exactly. Now let's show him how we did it the right way.
Okay.
First, we used clear all to initialize dBASE.
Okay. So what files did you want to connect?
I wanted to connect suppliers to my menu database.
Mm-hmm.
So then we typed select 2 and hit return.
I thought that was to select two databases.
Yes, but that's not exactly what it means. With dBASE, you can use up to 10 files at once. Each of these is assigned a separate work area. Select 2 is a command to choose work area 2. Select 9 chooses work area 9. Whenever you enter dBASE, you're automatically in work area number 1.
Yes, we know that now.
Then how did you use your supplier database?
Like you normally would, with the use command.
We enter display to see one of the records, then entered select 1 to get the first database up. Then we typed use menus and display.
That's where I had my problem earlier. I did everything except use the select command.
Yeah, well, that would make a difference. Now, if you'll display an item from your first database, I'll show you what I mean.
Type display, followed by the name of the first field, supplier, a dash, a greater than sign, and the name of a field from the first database.
I still don't understand why I need to type the database name, the dash, and that funny arrow.
That's because dBASE searches only the active database file for the field names. If you want to get a field from another file, we have to name the file. The dash and the funny arrow are there to separate the file name from the field name. Now, if you want to know what's going on in the current work area, use the display status command.
Display status indicates clearly which files are in use at any one time. It also reminds you of any alias you may have given a particular file.
Do you understand the alias?
That's the alternative name you can give the database when you first open it with the use command. If you don't assign an alias to a file, the file name becomes the alias.
Right.
You need it so you don't have to remember which file is in which work area. You just can switch back and forth between the files by using select with the alias.
To leave display status, press the escape key. To do what Gail wanted, you have to select menus and display and select supplier and then display.
It's just like the use.
Well, except use opens a file. It always takes you to the beginning of that file. When select chooses a file, you start wherever you left off.
Mom, why did you tell Dad about the other problem we solved?
I have a field in both my menu and supplier databases that use matching code letters. Now, what I wanted was to display the supplier's name rather than his code letter when I called up a menu item.
Yeah, well, it won't happen automatically, but it can be done.
Using set relations, one of the many set commands in dBASE.
Well, is your supplier database indexed on the code?
Yes.
Well, then it's simple. You select the menu file. That's your main one. And the supplier file will feed it. But just make sure that the index in the supplier code is also turned on.
The complete command is set relation to supply code into supplier. We could test it by displaying part of both databases. Use the supply code from each as a criteria, and then use the question mark command.
Well, there it is. It worked.
Will it work with the report as well?
Well, it should. Hey, I've got to get back to work. Thanks for the lesson.
Don't mention it.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
dBASE has a total of 10 separate work areas. A different database file can be used in each of these. The same database cannot be used in more than one area at a time. You can move about only within the selected file. When you turn dBASE on, you're in selected work area number 1. In switching from work area to work area, the select command allows you to use either the number of the work area or the alias of the database file to make your selection. Set relation allows you to link two databases together by means of a common field or expression. This provides automatic cross-referencing between database files. The database being linked must be indexed on the expression. This is the technique that Mrs. Fisher intends to use for each of the suppliers to Mrs. Covington's party.
Okay, Lynn, here are the...
Like Gail with her printed reports on the Covington party, George, too, has his payoff. Analyses, forecasts, and full budget reports that he'll distribute in the morning. In both cases, dBASE helped to cut the amount of time spent on paperwork, and in both businesses, that's quite a boon. George, like Gail, handles a lot of varied data, and he has to be flexible about it. dBASE provides a system that easily lets him change, add, update, delete, and prepare the printed reports that Michael has asked him to show to Art. There are many other facets to the world of dBASE.
Well, hello, Art.
More sophisticated commands and even a programming language inherent in the dBASE structure. But even for data processing professionals, accustomed to bigger machines and bigger budgets, dBASE and its keyboard commands can present many sophisticated options.
Well, I'm using the clear command to clean up my files before we
While
begin.
George is demonstrating the power and flexibility of dBASE, let's review the commands we have covered in this tape,
Clear all
grouped
closes all the
by their
open
function.
database files and all their associated files.
The first category is that of creating a database. To create a new database file, use the command create. Copy creates another database from data stored in an existing database. The next command category is that of changing a database. To change the structure of a database, use the command modify structure. To change the contents of a database, the commands are edit, append, delete, recall, pack, and replace. Replace updates the contents of a specified field with new information supplied by you, the user. The query commands are used to extract information from the database. The commands include display, list, sum, average, count, and the question mark command. Index and sort reorganize the database so that records are arranged in alphabetical, chronological, or numeric order. The related report commands enable the preparation of complex printed reports based on information from the databases and your answers to questions asked you by create report. You can change those answers with modify report, and report to print produces the hard copy output.
We have tried in this brief time to provide for you a set of keys that will allow you to enter the world of dBASE. Even though we haven't spanned the full range of applications for which dBASE was created, these keys should enable the novice user, with the knowledge only that is contained in this tape, to solve most of his or her database problems.